In the beginning of the movie, we see a guy named Jiwoo taking a photo of an empty building, and that building's name was Gwang Lim Mansion. Jiwoo is a webtoon artist who animates and explains any story through animation. And actually, he was looking for a really good story so he could make some money because he really needed it badly. That's why he had come to this mansion, which was really big and abandoned, and it was also pretty famous for weird things happening there, like people said it was haunted. Right then, he hears a sound, and we see a child standing behind him, but as soon as Jiwoo turns around, the kid disappears. Then he meets the manager or caretaker of the place, and Jiwoo tries to learn about the paranormal stuff that happened there. The caretaker agrees to tell him. Now the caretaker tells Jiwoo that this building used to be an orphanage, and one day a fire broke out. All the people living there ran away without saving the kids, and those children got trapped in the flames and died. After that, the caretaker tells Jiwoo some stories, and the first story is about a writer who used to get haunted by the kids who died in the fire. Now from here, the story goes into a flashback where we see that writer who had rented a room. It was room 504 in that mansion. Actually, he came there to live because he needed peace and quiet. Back at home, he had a small kid, so he couldn't really focus on writing his story. In fact, his wife even yells at him over the phone, asking why he left her and the little kid to stay there alone. Anyway, he came here to finish his novel. But while he's there, he starts hearing some strange sounds. And when he puts his ear to the floor, he hears the sound of kids playing on the floor below, which felt super eerie. Now the writer tells the dealer about the sound, and that's when we find out that no one actually lives on the floor below. The dealer knew that the place was haunted, but he still didn't tell the writer because he was greedy for money. He just wanted to rent that room no matter what. So he brushes it off and says, maybe some kids just come to play there sometimes for peace and quiet. The truth is, the writer had no idea that this place was haunted. In the next scene, we see that when the writer comes back after drinking water, his laptop is missing, and right then he hears a kid laughing. Right after that, the door opens by itself, and then his laptop suddenly falls from above, and then he sees a kid crawling away on his hands. It was seriously terrifying, but when he runs outside to check, no one's there. Now the writer goes to the same apartment where he had heard the kids playing. He knocks on the door and sees a bunch of kids' shoes placed there. Angrily, he throws all those shoes straight into the garbage. And later that same night, while he's sleeping, someone knocks on the door. When he opens it, he sees that the same shoes he threw away are placed right there again. Then we see someone knocking again on the door, and this time, the writer sees burned kids standing on the other side of the door. He gets so scared, he falls to the floor. And when he looks up at the ceiling, he sees the spirits of those same burned kids hanging upside down, and they kill the writer right there. From here, the story jumps back to the present, where Jiwoo asks the caretaker what happened to that writer, but the caretaker doesn't tell him anything. Instead, he starts talking to Jiwoo in a really weird way, asking him to share something about himself. Then, he tells Jiwoo one thing, that we should be careful about who we choose to get close to. After that, he starts telling his second story. Basically, Jiwoo needed a haunted story, and it had to be really strong, otherwise he could lose his job. Anyway, the caretaker begins the second story. This story is about room number 907. It was about a pharmacist named Sojin. Sojin was really beautiful. We notice there's a radio playing in her room, and through it we hear some news that a man killed his wife and his own 9-year-old son, and the police are searching for him. Meanwhile, Sojin is talking to her mom on a call. Basically, Sojin's mom had been cheated on by her dad, which is why her mom tells her not to get into a relationship with anyone. Her mom believed that all men are cheaters, but Sojin doesn't listen and ends the call. Then we see a photo there showing her with her boyfriend. So clearly, she's already in a relationship. That night, her boyfriend Sion comes to the apartment, and he looks really stressed. Sojin asks him what happened, and Sion tells her that his wife found out about the two of them, so now he has to stay here for a while, and he tells her not to tell anyone about it. Then Sojin asks him, if you can stay a few days, can't you stay with me for life? The next day, when Sojin goes to work, 2 police officers come to her and start asking about her boyfriend. She says she doesn't know anything. Then the police tell her that he killed his wife and 9-year-old son. Hearing that, Sojin rushes straight home, calling out for her boyfriend. Turns out, the news she heard on the radio earlier was actually about him. When she gets to the room, she sees Sean is taking a shower. Once again, he tells Sojin not to tell anyone anything. She says they have to leave immediately or the police will catch him. But Sean keeps repeating just one thing, don't tell anyone that I'm here. Then something shocking happens. Sojin's doorbell rings. It's no one else but her actual boyfriend standing there. Seeing this, she becomes terrified. If her boyfriend is outside, then who is in the shower? And who was with her last night? She quickly lets him in and says, if you're here, then who is in there? there, who looks exactly like you. Her boyfriend also notices. Someone who looks exactly like him is inside, taking a shower. Suddenly, we see a flashback of how Seon might have killed his wife and son. He has a hammer in his hand, the weapon he likely used to murder them. Suddenly, the entire room changes. Blood splatters appear all over the walls. The one in the shower was definitely some evil spirit, and it speaks, "You were warned not to tell anyone about this." Then the screen goes black, suggesting that Sojin may have been killed too. In the next scene, we see the third story beginning, and here we see the same dealer who was shown in the writer's story from room 504, the one who rented out the haunted mansion without telling him. Anyway, the dealer is now living in room number 708, where he's sitting at the table eating food, and opposite him, it looks like his wife is sitting there, but when the scene shifts, we see it's actually a doll that he's treating like his wife. The next day, when the dealer returns home, we see a corpse lying in front of him, wrapped in plastic, and that body isn't anyone else's, it's actually his real wife's. So maybe during a fight or in a moment of madness from financial stress, he killed her, and then started treating a doll like his wife. It kinda shows us that maybe he just wanted his wife to stop talking too much around him. So now the dealer sees that dirty water is leaking out from his kitchen, and when he turns around, his wife's dead body is no longer there. Then when he turns back toward the kitchen, he sees his wife's hand coming out of the sink, and she shuts off the drain. Seeing this totally freaks the dealer out. The scene cuts here and shifts to the next day, where we see the dealer once again eating with that same doll, and he starts hearing noises from the sink again. As he walks toward the sink, the doll suddenly falls over on its own. After looking at the doll, when he turns back to the sink, he sees the head of his wife's corpse in there, and it scares the hell out of him. He runs to his room and locks himself inside. Then he hears sounds from outside like his wife's body is crawling out of the plastic. Terrified, he hides in the closet, and just then, his doll shows up behind him. That's where the scene cuts out. So after all three stories are finished, the story jumps back to the present, where we see Jiwoo again. And he's sitting with that same dealer, who surprisingly wasn't dead yet, he was still alive. But the shocking part is, both of his hands had been cut off. Apparently, whatever spirit was in that mansion had chopped off his hands, and the guy had pretty much lost his mind. He starts saying weird stuff like he's cursed or something. He even says things about a cult and a church, but Jiwoo doesn't really understand any of it. So Jiwoo takes those three stories to a publisher and tells him the whole thing. The publisher says the stories are amazing, super scary and intense, but he also says they're too short. Jiwoo needs to expand them more, because obviously the longer the stories, the more money they'll make, and that's how Jiwoo will actually get paid. And remember, I already told you, Jiwoo really needs the money. So Jiwoo goes back into that same mansion and tells the manager that he wants more stories, but the manager says, if even these stories feel too few for you, then you should probably just leave, because these are the only stories tied to this mansion. He keeps telling him to go away, and that's when Jiwoo gets really angry. Jiwoo clearly says that every possible story connected to this place, he needs to hear all of them, and for that, he's willing to do whatever it takes. When the manager hears that, he just starts laughing a lot, and that's exactly the moment where his earlier line fits perfectly, that before asking for something, you should think 1,000 times, because it might come back to bite you. That's when the manager begins telling one more story. This one's about room 604, which Jiwoo logs into his records just like he did with the previous stories. It's about a guy named Dae-hwan who had come to stay at his friend's place. Dae-hwan had gone abroad to study, but he failed and ended up coming back. Now, he couldn't go back to his own home, because hearing that would have really disappointed his mom and dad, so he decided to stay at his friend's. While they're eating dinner together, Dae-hwan notices Jae's face is covered in weird breakouts, like seriously bad acne. And talking about the food, all of it was spoiled, totally rotten, but Jae was eating it like it was super fresh and tasty. The next day, when Jae leaves for work, Dae-hwan checks the fridge and sees that everything inside is completely spoiled. So Jae had been eating rotten food for days. On top of that, the whole house was filthy. Seeing all this made Dae-hwan really sad, so he starts cleaning up. But when he goes into Jae's room, a terrible smell hits him. The room is full of black mold. There's even a photo that's badly rotted, probably of Jae and his parents. So Dae-hwan cleans up that room too. Then later that night, Jae comes home and sees the house and room all cleaned up, and he's totally shocked. And then he just blows up on Dae-hwan, which leaves Dae-hwan totally confused. Jae says, "How could you do that to my parents?" So Dae-hwan, frustrated, pushes him and storms out. After all this, Dae-hwan starts to suspect that something's seriously wrong with this house, and where there's black mold, there's often signs of evil spirits too. Now Dae-hwan packs his bag and is just about to leave, but suddenly that same horrible smell hits him again. When he walks back into Jae's room, what he sees really shocks him. The room he cleaned yesterday is filthy all over again, and now the fungus and black mold are coming out from that same old painting. While he's staring at it, Jae suddenly shows up. When Jae takes his hand off his face is totally rotted, like the mold has taken over. He doesn't even look alive anymore, like he was already dead. Dae-hwan's panicking, stepping backward, and just then, black mold-covered hands come out from the painting and grab him. They hold him tight, and the door slams shut. It becomes crystal clear. Dai-hwan's dead too. That mansion got him. In present time, Ji-woo asks the manager, was this building built by some kind of cult? Because apparently he'd heard that some cult members were behind it. After hearing this, the caretaker hands Ji-woo a key and says, if you really want to know the truth, go find out yourself. And that key? It's for room 1504, a room surrounded by mystery. As soon as Ji-woo enters that room, he finds a tape sitting there. And when he plays it, he discovers it's not just anyone's tape, it actually belongs to the caretaker himself. Then we cut to another scene where we see Ji-woo's girlfriend, Da-hye. She's really upset because Ji-woo ended up missing his own birthday, all because he's obsessed with this investigation and chasing new stories. Then we see Da-hye notice the recordings of those first 3 stories, the ones where Ji-woo had supposedly recorded the manager telling the tales. But shockingly, when she plays the recordings, she only hears Ji-woo's voice. The manager's voice is completely missing. That's when it hits her. Ji-woo is in serious danger, and she immediately rushes toward the mansion. That's when we hear the manager's voice on the tape saying, if you're listening to this tape, it means you truly want to know the truth, and I'll tell you myself. Basically, this final 5th story is the manager's own story. He says, I didn't come here to be a manager. I came here just like you did. The only difference is you came to uncover the truth, and I came here to steal something with my friend. Then the scene shifts to the manager's backstory. The manager and his friend are sitting in a car chatting, and from their conversation, we learn that this building was built by a cult that worshipped a demon, and that same cult had stashed a ton of money in one of the rooms inside this mansion. These two needed the money because the manager's friend's mom was hospitalized, and they needed a lot of cash for her surgery, so they came here to steal, after hearing there was a massive amount of money hidden in that place. So now they keep searching and end up in that same room, room number 1504, and there they find the dead body of the cult leader, which looked super creepy. At the same time, the manager's friend sees some hair hanging out from the closet, but right as he's looking, the hair pulls back inside. He tries to tell the manager, but the manager doesn't believe him. Anyway, the cult leader's body has something like bells tied around his feet, and there's also some kind of religious cloth placed over him. The manager says something weird, that the body can actually be brought back to life, and that's why it's been tied up with those bells. The friend keeps saying, this place isn't right. There's something seriously wrong here. We need to leave. But the manager still doesn't listen. Then, from the mouth of the corpse, he finds a key, and it turns out to be for the same closet where his friend saw the hair. Without thinking, the manager opens the closet and finds a ton of money inside. So yeah, the thing about the money, it was totally true. As soon as the manager sees the cash, he completely loses it. He starts yelling like a madman, we're rich, and then begins stuffing money into his bag. But right then, his friend hears this jingling sound from behind. When he turns around, there's nothing there. Then, when he looks back at the manager is gone. And when he turns back again, the corpse is standing right in front of his face. Super creepy. Basically, without realizing it, they had brought that cult leader's body back to life. Seeing that thing come alive, the manager's friend freaks out and runs straight out of the building. He gets back into the car. Just as he's about to start it, the manager suddenly shows up and gets in too. The friend asks, where the hell did you disappear to? And the manager, in a super low voice, says, I saw something in there. Do you want to see it too? The friend, terrified, says, no, I don't want to see anything. Then suddenly, he notices the feet of the manager, but they aren't actually the manager's, they belong to the cult corpse. And as he looks up, he realizes that's not the manager. It's the same corpse, disguised as him, sitting in the car. And right then, the corpse kills the manager's friend on the spot. The scene shifts. Now we see Ji-woo also spotting that same corpse. He rushes and hides inside the same closet where the manager had found the money. Then the manager shows up. Actually, it's the cult corpse again, coming back in disguise. He says to Ji-woo, the time I spent with you was really fun. And Ji-woo, I'm really gonna miss you. As soon as he says that and starts walking away, he takes on Ji-woo's face. Ji-woo sees that and is completely shocked. Now it's time to uncover the real truth behind this movie. So basically, the very first story is that some church people nearby had found out this place was being used for devil worship, that a cult was active here. So those church members killed everyone and set the place on fire. After that, the cult leader's corpse was locked inside that room, with bells tied to it and chants spoken over it just to make sure the body could never come back to life. But out of greed for money, the manager messed things up, and that's how the cult leader came back to life, now with even more powers. His first power was shapeshifting. He could take anyone's appearance. Since the manager was the first one to come in, he took his form. Then, whoever entered after that, he killed them, but if he really liked someone, he copied their form, which means the real manager actually died that very night. And now, Ji-woo ends up trapped in that place, and it's very possible that he might have died too. Next scene, Ji-woo's girlfriend also shows up there, and when she sees Ji-woo, he gives her this creepy smile, and his eyes suddenly turn completely black. And like we already know, that's not Ji-woo, that's the cult leader, who's actually an evil spirit. Da-hye figures it out right away, just by looking at him. She already heard earlier earlier that only Jiwoo's voice was on the tape. Rest of the story? We know it too. Whoever enters that building never comes out alive. And with that, the movie ends. So, how did you guys like it? If you enjoyed the video even a little, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. My only goal is to break down horror and thriller films, so turn on the bell too so you don't miss the upcoming explanation videos. Take care.